What would you do if you realized you were nothing more than a walking ATM to your own flesh and blood? I'm Elaine Brooks, 76 years old. And I just spent 5 hours driving through a lethal blizzard, nearly dying on the shoulder of the I-5 just so I could stand shivering on my daughter's porch. I was clutching a 3-tier strawberry shortcake I spent 2 days pouring my soul into, only to hear her whisper through the door, "I wish Mom had just gotten stuck in the storm." My heart didn't just break. It shattered. Without making a sound, I set that cake down and walked back into the whiteout. Within 48 hours, I discovered the truth. The loans I co-signed for them were about to cost me my own home. This is the story of how I stopped being the victim and became the storm itself. Before we go further, hit that like button if you've ever gone the extra mile for the people you love. And drop a comment. Where are you watching from? I've been a widow for 10 years. I'm a retired high school cook who still organizes her spice rack in alphabetical order. After my husband passed, I stayed in our cabin in Hood River. It's full of him's favorite armchair, the vegetable garden I tend every single morning. For a decade, it's been just me, my hand-knitted blankets, and my garden. My relationship with my only daughter, Melissa, has gone ice cold over the years, though I tried my best to ignore the frost. I told myself she was just busy, but the calls got shorter. Her voice got tense every time I mentioned visiting, like I was some uninvited burden. She texted me, "Just a small party, Mom, only Sophie's friends. We're swamped." But I wanted to surprise them. I couldn't forget the 3 years Sophie lived with me as a toddler, listening to my stories by the fire, wrapped in the wool I knitted for her. Their excuses grew like weeds. It's too much work, home renovations, parties with no room for me. Last Thanksgiving, they went to Hawaii and said they were too tied up. Then I saw Melissa's Instagram beach photos, cocktails glowing in the sun. I blamed myself. I thought I was too needy, too sad, just a widow who couldn't let go of the past. I kept sending the gifts, homemade cookies, and knitted scarves, and birthday checks that kept getting bigger, praying for a longer phone call, a shred of warmth. I became that grandma waiting for the phone to ring, clipping art articles for Sophie that she'd never even read. But this blizzard, it wasn't just a weather event. It was a wake-up call. When the only thing you get back for your love is financial betrayal disguised as family ties, you realize something. Strength isn't about what you can endure. It's about what you're brave enough to stop. This is how I stopped being used. This is how I became the storm. That shortcake took 2 days. 3 tiers of fresh strawberries, whipped cream, and 16 marzipan strawberry flowers each. One took 15 minutes to mold with my shaky hands. I arranged them in a circle, like a tiny garden. Sophie has obsessed over shortcake since she was 4, standing on a kitchen chair, begging for Elaine's cake instead of chocolate. I was up at 5 a.m., softening butter, macerating berries, whisking cream with that hint of fresh lemon my mother taught me. My husband used to sneak a finger of cream and laugh behind my back. I always pretended not to see. "Are you really driving that far alone?" my neighbor Clara asked, clutching her watering can by the fence. "We've been neighbors for 25 years. She helped me with the garden when my husband was sick. She brought me soup when I was down. It's just the I-5, Clara, not the Oregon Trail," I joked, propping the cake between 2 pillows in the trunk. "Take your phone and call me when you land," she muttered, her eyes full of worry. "You sound just like my mother," I teased. Even though we're the same age, I pulled out of Hood River at 2 p.m. I adjusted my seat to support my aching shoulder and hummed my husband's favorite song to stay sharp. 5.5 hours. That number felt like a middle finger to my arthritis. On the I-5, massive snowflakes slammed into my windshield, trying to drown out my resolve. The wipers screeched in a losing battle. A semi-truck roared past, nearly clipping me. The slush from its tires blinded me instantly. My heart hammered against my ribs. "For Sophie. Stay calm," I whispered, white-knuckling the wheel. "I should turn back. The thought flickered, but then I saw Sophie in my mind hugging me and squealing, "Grandma, it's yummy." That was my only anchor. To get through the bone-deep aches and the fear, I let my mind drift to the best memories. Love is the strongest painkiller there is. 2 hours in, I had to hit a rest stop. Shaking, I rubbed heat cream into my shoulder. A stranger, a truck driver, asked if I was okay. "Snow's thick, ma'am. Gets worse up north." I gave him a weak smile. "I'm halfway there. I have to go. For my granddaughter." The rest of the drive was a war. My body was a choir of cramps and popping joints. 5 hours and 30 minutes. Finally, Seattle appeared through the veil of snow like a mirage. Exhausted, starving, my coat soaked through, I rolled off the 125 and into my daughter's neighborhood. I had no idea that the moment I'd been dreaming of all day was about to become my most painful lesson. I caught my reflection in the rearview lipstick, faded hair flattened on one side from leaning against the glass for 5.5 hours. It didn't matter. I'd fix it before I went in. As I turned onto Melissa's street, the storm eased up. As if the universe was opening a window for a moment of clarity and hope. The houses here are massive, detached, with lawns perfectly manicured. Despite the snow, Melissa's place was the biggest at the end of the block, glowing with warm light in the twilight. Through the large windows, I saw shadows moving, prepping for Sophie's Sweet 16, I assumed. A party where my name wasn't on the guest list. I parked across the street, away from the driveway, keeping the surprise intact. I carefully lifted the cake box, checking that all 16 marzipan flowers were still perfect, and stepped out. The snow was still falling. It was only 20 steps to the door, but my coat was drenched and ice water seeped into my flats, chilling my ankles. I didn't ring the bell. The door was unlocked, as it always is when they're hosting guests, just not me. Stepped into the foyer, snow slush pooling under my shoes. The smell of herbs and roasted garlic drifted out, reminding me of the fancy dinners Melissa and Jacob used to throw for their friends. The ones I stopped being invited to a long time ago. Their house was a monument to perfect staging. That antique wooden table cost more than my first car. The abstract paintings, Melissa insisted, were investments, looked like finger painting to me. The family photos were meticulously arranged on the wall, but not a single one featured me. It was like I'd never existed. The marble floors were glossy under the recessed lighting, feeling cold under my wet shoes. I hesitated. Should I call out? Should I announce myself? The cake and the gift bag memory album for Sophie felt heavy in my arms, carrying the weight of 3 tiers of expectations. Then I heard voices from the kitchen. Melissa and Jacob laughing. I walked slowly, rehearsing my greeting. Surprise, too. Cliché, happy birthday, Sophie, sweetie, to saccharine. Maybe a simple hi guys would be enough, but as I was about to turn into the kitchen, I heard my name. Without thinking, I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Mom called this morning," Melissa said, her voice sharp and cold, just like it's been lately. "3rd time this week. What does she want now?" Jacob asked, sounding utterly drained. I froze, the cake box feeling like lead in my arms. "The usual," Melissa replied. Meaningless chatter for an hour, reminding me she's lonely, making me feel guilty just for living my life. My breath caught. I should have turned around. I should have left with what little dignity I had left, but my feet were rooted to the spot. I couldn't move. "Good thing she didn't invite herself to Sophie's birthday," Jacob said. "Remember last year she stayed a whole week." "Don't remind me," Melissa sighed. I had to hide in the bedroom just to get some peace. Every word was a knife to the chest. I stood there perfectly still as melted snow dripped from my coat onto their polished hardwood floor. "She mentioned wanting to swing by early," Melissa continued. "I told her we were swamped." "Good," Jacob replied, "as long as she doesn't pull a surprise appearance." The irony would have been funny if it weren't so devastating. A bitter taste filled my throat, like rotten strawberries. I looked down at my hand's flour still under my nails from the cake I spent 2 days on. My knuckles cracked and bleeding. From the cold on the I-5, that pain was nothing compared to the scent of roasted garlic wafting through the door. Smell of a family dinner I nearly died to attend. Only to realize I was the intruder. Through the double-pane windows, sparkling with expensive decorations, I saw their shadows raising a toast with crystal glasses likely bought with a debt that bears my name. Meanwhile, on the freezing porch, rain mixed with my tears and ran down my collar. I stood there, my shadow stretching across the glossy floor, a silent ghost whose name is on the bills for everything in that warm, cozy house. My God, I wish she'd just gotten stuck in the storm, Melissa suddenly said, and my heart stopped. Just so I wouldn't have to hear her calling all the time. Jacob gave a dry laugh. Or got lost, he added. Give us a weekend without the nagging. Their laughter mingled like honeyed poison. The cake box trembled in my hands. My daughter, the child I nursed through every illness, rushed to the ER at midnight, helped with science projects at 2 a.m. Consoled through every heartbreak, with ice cream and patience, was wishing for my demise. And Jacob, the man who once promised to cherish my family, was laughing along. My body, no longer paralyzed by the hurt, moved on its own. I walked into that kitchen like a wraith rising from the blizzard. Melissa was chopping vegetables. Jacob was stirring a pot of soup, that smell of family I had craved, now reeking of betrayal. They spun around, and the terror on their faces wasn't from seeing their mother. It was like seeing a debt collector who wasn't supposed to show up. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just pulled the phone from my pocket, the screen glowing with that red recording icon still blinking. Capturing every word they'd just said, Dan, I hit stop. A sharp, dry beep cut through the sudden silence of the kitchen, like a gunshot signaling the end of a war. I watched Jacob drop his fork, the metal clattering against the floor like a death knell for their lies. I looked Melissa dead in the eye, my voice low but every word distinct. In Oregon, the law only needs one party to consent, and I consented. For myself, then, I quietly set the strawberry shortcake, crushed on one corner, onto the cold stone counter next to the dead phone. I saw real, unadulterated panic in her eyes for the first time. Time stopped. I saw the panic in their eyes, the frantic calculations as they tried to guess how much I'd heard and how to spin it. Melissa reached for her neck, a gesture she inherited from me when words fail. I still didn't speak. I didn't cry, exhausted and starving. I didn't have the strength to drive 5 hours back to Hood River through a dark blizzard. My eyes were blurred, my stomach cramping. I drove slowly, nearly losing the road in the drifts, until I found a small hotel near King Street Station. My hands were stiff, my body shattered. I slumped onto the bed in a cold room that smelled like old wood and dim lights. The loneliness was suffocating. Looking out the window at the dim Seattle lights, I felt as empty as the night I lost my husband. I ordered a sandwich from room service, but every bite felt like sand. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank accounts. 3 credit cards I co-signed for them, $60,000 maxed out. A second mortgage for $80,000 on Melissa's house. A personal loan for $25,000 opened just 6 months ago. I helped them buy their first home, but they'd gone behind my back, taking out more to fund a vacation house in Lake Chelum without saying a word. In that cold hotel room, the truth finally set in. But what I did next, was going to make them lose a lot more than a lake house. They were about to lose the one thing they thought they owned forever: control over my life. It wasn't just the cold numbers. In a panic, I scoured my junk mail and my laptop history. And I found them. A string of emails between Melissa and Jacob with the subject line, "Financial Plan for Mom." They were discussing how to convince her to sign without looking too closely, and how to use Sophie as an emotional bargaining chip if needed. The dates matched the days I was in the hospital with severe arthritis at my absolute weakest. With the recording from the blizzard, I now had everything I needed. But what I did next, was truly going to cost them their sense of security. When I called my lawyer, Karen, I was actually smiling. Because now I didn't just have the pain, I had the receipts. But before I tell you about the war that followed, I have to admit something that chills me to the bone. Melissa didn't learn this level of calculation from nowhere. She watched my blind devotion and learned how to turn it into a resource to be mined exactly the way. I used sacrifice to cover up the cracks of a mother who wasn't brave enough to set boundaries. This wasn't a copy of her cruelty. It was a copy of my own weakness, gone uncorrected for generations. To them, I wasn't a mother. I was a credit line dot as I dug deeper into the debt at the hotel. One final loan stopped my heart. A brand new application approved just 10 days ago, during the days I was at my weakest, unable to care for myself with. The stated purpose down payment for infant care for Ellen. They were already planning to exploit me for the next generation. Right when I was most vulnerable, memories of Melissa's coldness came flooding back. The Thanksgiving I wasn't invited. 2. The birthday gifts for Sophie that were returned unopened. Every memory was a fresh cut. But then a text from Sophie popped up. "Grandma, I miss you," a tiny light that pushed me to act. If you've ever been betrayed by family, what would you do? Comment with your story or leave a heart if you've felt this pain. My journey isn't over. Can you guess what I did next? I left the cake and the gift bag on the counter, turned around, and walked right back out the door I came in. "Mom?" Melissa called out. "Mom, wait." But I was already gone. The snow falling heavy as I walked faster than my old legs should have allowed. Back to the car. Back to the I-5 that brought me here. "Grandma, please," Sophie texted. But I didn't. "Stop." Jacob joined the chorus, calling my name. "You've got it all wrong." I slammed the car door, cutting off their excuses. I turned the key and my hands weren't shaking anymore. It's strange how clarity hits you the moment everything falls apart. The wipers cleared the snow in a rhythmic beat. Left, right. Truth, lies. Betrayal in the rearview mirror. I saw them standing in the doorway, Melissa hugging herself. Jacob, with a hand on her shoulder. It grew smaller and smaller, fading into the white as I drove away. I didn't look back. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you couldn't forgive? Tell me your story in the comments. Walking away from the pain is sometimes the hardest part. The snow fell harder as I hit the highway, like nature itself was shielding my retreat. My wet coat clung to my skin, freezing, but that feeling was distant, replaced by the hollow ache spreading in my chest. The passenger seat, where the cake and album once sat, was empty in the twilight. My phone buzzed incessantly and my purse won. 2, then a nonstop barrage of texts and calls. I knew it was Melissa, desperately trying to fix the unfixable. I silenced it without looking. Where do you go when home is a lie? When the love you relied on turns out to be conditional. The I-5 stretched out a ribbon of possibilities, but none of them led back to the trust I had just an hour ago. I drove aimlessly until the gas light flickered. A hotel appeared through the snow near King Street Station Old, with a blinking vacancy sign. It wasn't just a place to sleep. It was the anonymity I needed. The hotel room reeked of stale cigarettes and industrial disinfectant. The bedspread was covered in loud floral patterns, a pathetic attempt at cheerfulness. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my damp clothes, staring at the wallpaper until my vision blurred. At 8 p.m., my phone lit up. A text from Sophie. "Grandma, I kept the cake. I love you." A tiny spark of warmth flickered in my chest amidst the storm in my soul. But the weight of the pain remained. For the first time since hearing those toxic words, I let myself feel it all. This wasn't just a heat of a moment insult. This was the peak of 1,000 cold shoulders, of excuses that had grown increasingly transparent, a dying relationship. I'd been watering with hope. Melissa hadn't just rejected my visit, she had erased me from her life. My phone vibrated 17 times that night. I didn't answer. Morning crept through the thin curtains as the blizzard softened. I had fallen asleep in my wet clothes, too numb to care about comfort. My phone had stopped buzzing at 2 a.m., the battery drained by the constant notifications. In the bathroom light, I barely recognized myself. My eyes were hollow, the wrinkles around my mouth etched deep. I showered, put my old clothes back on, and checked my phone after charging it. 27 missed calls, 35 texts. Melissa, Mom, call me back. You got it all wrong. Jacob, ma'am, we were just joking. Melissa, Mom, I'm worried. Jacob, where are you? At least let us know you're safe. Melissa, if you don't call, I'm calling the police. An empty threat. Melissa wouldn't dare explain why her mother had vanished. I called Clara, my voice trembling. They see me as a burden, Clara. But Sophie still needs me. Clara was silent for a beat, then whispered, "Come home, Elaine." I hung up and weighed my options. I could go back to Hood River and pretend this never happened. I could confront them and demand an apology. Or I could do something else entirely. This wasn't their first betrayal. There were small wounds I'd ignored. The Christmas they canceled because Jacob was sick, only to post photos skiing in Sun Valley. The visit where my toiletries were moved from the bathroom to the hallway closet before their friends arrived. The birthday gifts for Sophie returned with a thank you note that sounded like it was written to a stranger. What I had viewed as thoughtless accidents were now a crystal clear pattern. If you've ever realized a heartbreaking truth about your family, what did you do? Tell me in the comments, or leave a heart if you feel this. My journey isn't over guess. Which path I took, instead of driving back to Hood River or returning to Melissa's, i.e., 76 years old. With hands still shaky from the blizzard, punched the address of a different Seattle hotel into the GPS, near King Street Station. Close enough to think, far enough to keep my distance from my daughter. It's a place where I could drop the daily weight of being mom. My phone vibrated. Not Melissa or Jacob this time. It was Clara. Elaine, thank God. I've been calling since yesterday. Are you okay? Melissa reached out, said something happened. I let out a long breath. Heard them, Clara. Melissa wished I'd gotten stuck in the storm. Said my cakes were dry and she was tired of faking it. Jacob laughed. Said I was a pest and life would be easier if I stopped nagging. Silence for 3 heartbeats. Where are you? Clara asked, her voice tight with suppressed rage. Still in Seattle? Good. Don't go back there. Come home when you're ready. Still have that bottle of red Tom gave us before he passed. It's time to uncork it. For the first time since I stepped into Melissa's kitchen, I felt a ghost of a smile. Not from happiness, it was too soon for that. But from the realization that even if I'd lost a daughter, I wasn't alone. Clara was real family. I'll be back in a few days, I said. Keep the wine chilled. Red wine isn't chilled. You idiot, Clara snapped. That familiarity was the only solid ground I'd felt in 24 hours. I hung up and kept driving as the I-5 opened up like an unanswered question. The snow stopped. Leaving Seattle looking scrubbed and Nua feeling I hadn't quite reached yet. But between the pain and the horizon, a small part of me started thinking about the next move. Not forgiveness, not yet. But action. For Sophie, the granddaughter who once hugged me and squealed, "Grandma, it's yummy," when she was three. Days in the hotel brought a silence that didn't feel like loneliness. No calls to answer, no appearances to maintain. I missed Tom. I missed the nights he told stories by the fire, just like I used to do for Sophie. I bought new clothes at a nearby mall, simple things. None of the bright floral dresses Melissa claimed made me look younger. I only took calls from Clara, who updated me on the house and my cat, Whiskers. "You know, they went to your house, right?" Clara said that night. "Melissa and Jacob knocked on your door, then mine when they realized you weren't there. What did you say?" "That you're safe and you'll reach out when you're ready." Jacob tried his charming son-in-law routine. Hey, I'm old, Elaine, not blind. On the fourth morning, I called the bank. I want information on every account I've co-signed, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I no longer cared. If Melissa complained about her debt or told me my calls made her tired, the clerk hesitated. You mean the joint account, Mrs. Brooks? No. Every account I'm a guarantor for: cards, loans, anything tied to my assets. What came next hurt worse than Melissa's cruel words. 3 credit cards. Total limit $60,000, the price of fancy dinners and sparkling cocktails while I ate sandwiches at home. It's a personal loan for $25,000 for a business trip to Hawaii. And a second mortgage for $80,000 on that big house, the one they called a home. The one that had no room for me. Each number on the screen felt like a blade, cutting through every scrap of love I had left. I realized then the birthday gifts I sent. The times I skipped meals to save money for them, it was all just a fee they used to buy a happiness that didn't include me. When were these opened? I asked the clerk, my hands trembling. The oldest card was 8 years ago. The most recent, 6 months ago. 6 months ago, Melissa had cried to me about Jacob's work stress. Now I wondered if it was something else, a lifestyle she never shared. She used to refuse cash. Mom, we don't need charity, just your emotional support. Now I understood. My signature as a guarantor was worth more than 1,000,000 I love yous. I called Karen Wells, an old friend and lawyer in Portland, via Skype. Elaine, what's going on? You look serious, she said through the screen. I need to revoke every financial guarantee: cards, loans, mortgages immediately. Close the joint account with Melissa and move my funds. And we're redrafting my will. Most of it goes to Sophie, the rest to a charity for the isolated elderly. Karen nodded and promised to send the paperwork. I felt a surge of power, the same one that pushed me through the blizzard for Sophie. Then I contacted Tom's financial advisor. The Hood River house was now worth $750,000 between life insurance, a pension, and stocks. It totaled over $1.8 million, almost exactly what Melissa and Jacob needed for that lake house they'd been eyeing, while claiming they couldn't afford a plane ticket to see me for Christmas. The final puzzle piece clicked into place when I checked the bank notifications. A fresh loan application in Jacob's name for a lakefront property. My signature, my legacy, had been hijacked. That night, I sat on my hotel bed surrounded by a paper trail of emotional and financial manipulation, as cold as the blizzard. I'd just survived. The bank confirmed it. Their credit cards were frozen and the joint accounts terminated. Melissa was about to hit a wall of reality. I called Karen Wells again. No Skype this time. Met her at a corner cafe on Powell Street. Karen looked at me with a rare, knowing smile. I've been waiting 10 years for you to say those words, Elaine. We worked for 2 hours. River House. The savings, the stocks 80% went into a trust for Sophie, locked until she's 21. The other 20% to an Oregon nonprofit for the isolated elderly and Melissa. Karen asked, her pen hovering. I took a breath. Give her the photo album I made for Sophie. And the hand-knitted scarves. Let her remember how much her mother used to love her. Karen smirked, cold yet poetic. I like it. The bank associate warned me, they'll feel the impact. In days, credit limits will plummet. The lake house. That deal is dead. They're losing the deposit. I replayed Melissa's voice in my head. I wish she'd just gotten stuck in the storm. And Jacob's laugh. She's persistent, I'll give her that. I gripped the pen and signed my name with the steadiest hand I've had in years. Before I left, I called Clara. I cut the cord, Clara. Every financial tie to Melissa and Jacob is gone. I'm proud of you, Elaine, she said, and one day, Sophie will be too. That evening, back in my hotel near King Street Station, the room smelled of old wood and dim lights. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel guilty. For the first time, I felt a strange, quiet peace. But that peace was ripped to shreds by a call from an unknown number. A woman's voice, sharp as a razor, answered, "Mrs. Brooks, this is Sarah Chen, legal counsel for Melissa and Jacob. We are preparing to sue you for breach of contract regarding the loan guarantees. You signed those commitments, and your sudden withdrawal has caused severe financial damages. We will be seeking full compensation, including the lost deposit on the vacation home." My hands shook as I hung up. They were actually suing me. But the lawsuit wasn't the worst part. They had reached out to Sophie. They'd fed her a twisted version of the truth, telling her that her grandmother was being selfish, cutting off the family out of spite, and choosing revenge over her own flesh and blood. My granddaughter, the person I loved most, now looked at me like I was a villain. I ordered grilled semina, rare tree tanned, watched the sunset over the Seattle skyline. I thought about a retirement community in Bellevue I'd seen. It had a garden that reminded me of the kitchen Tom and I shared. A place where I could live vibrantly, not as a forgotten burden. My phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. "Mom, you misunderstood. I was just joking." I didn't reply. Finally, the phone rang again. "Jacob." I took a sip of ice water, listening to the soft patter of snow against the glass. "What the hell are you doing, Elaine?" Jacob barked, his voice thick with panic. Not a single ounce of concern for my safety. "Hello, Jacob," I said calmly. "I'm fine. Thanks for asking. The bank called. Our cards are frozen. The mortgage company contacted us. The realtor for the lake house is asking questions. What did you tell them? You told us you'd help with the deposit, and now you're backing out?" "It was just a misunderstanding," he added quickly, as if words could erase the truth. "Elaine, we need to talk. Whatever you think you heard that night, ... I know exactly what I heard." I cut him off, my voice as sharp as the knife. "I used to slice strawberries for that cake. And what I found afterward proved it wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a pattern of exploitation. No more Jacob. No more manipulation. No more guarantees. No more funding a life that excludes me until you need a signature. Mom, please," he practically begged. But I didn't give him space for another lie. I hung up and blocked him. I opened my laptop and booked an Amtrak ticket back to Hood River for the morning. That 5-hour drive through the blizzard had opened my eyes. A 4-hour train ride would take me to my freedom. I packed my new clothes, the gray sweaters, the simple jeans. None of those floral dresses Melissa claimed were youthful. Into my old suitcase. I wasn't young, wasn't old. I wasn't winning, and I wasn't losing. I was just free. But that first taste of freedom only lasted one night. The next morning, a frantic pounding at my hotel door woke me. I opened it to find Sophie. Her coat was too thin for the cold, and she was shaking from the inside out. Her eyes were red and swollen. She was clutching her phone, an open chat with Melissa on the screen. The last message read, "Go talk to her now." "Grandma," Sophie's voice broke. "Mom said you destroyed everything because of a joke. She said you're punishing the whole family because your feelings got hurt. She hasn't stopped crying. They're going to lose the house." My heart broke for the second time. Melissa hadn't just sued me. She had turned me into the monster in Sophie's eyes. "Do you want to hear the truth, Sophie?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Do you want to hear what I actually heard that night?" Sophie nodded, tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to believe anymore." I didn't say another word. I just opened the audio file on my phone. Melissa's voice rang out crystal clear. My God, I wish she'd just gotten stuck in the storm, ... just so I wouldn't have to hear her calling all the time. Then Jacob's dry chuckle, or got lost. Imagine a weekend without the nagging. Sophie went still. Her phone almost slipped from her hand. Her face went pale, her lips moving but making no sound. Let me hear it again," she whispered. And for the first time, I told her everything, not just the cruelty on the porch, but the secret loans, the emails, the plan to use her as an emotional bargaining chip. When I finished, the silence in the room was heavy. Then Sophie stood up, walked across the gap between us, and threw her arms around me. It was a tight, desperate hug. "I'm so sorry, Grandma. I should have asked you. I believe you." In that moment, I realized the only thing that can cut through a wall of lies is the cold, hard truth of a recorded voice. Back in Hood River, the cabin welcomed me with the familiar scent of pine. Clara came over, bringing that bottle of red Tom had left behind. "They've been calling me nonstop," Clara said. "Melissa is more angry than worried now." "I'm sure the financial notices have arrived," I replied, taking a sip of the wine. The bitterness washed over my tongue, and for the first time, I didn't mind the taste. 3 days later, Melissa's letter arrived. "Mom, I don't understand. What you heard on Sophie's birthday, we were just joking. If you need something, just say it. Don't cut everything off. Love, Melissa." I folded the letter and locked it in a wooden box, locking away the pain with it. No real apology here, just excuses masquerading as greed. That evening, Jacob called from a new number. "The lake house contract is set for next Friday. The sellers won't extend. We need you to re-sign the guarantee by Monday." "Hello, Jacob," I said, my voice level. "That's not going to happen." "Mom, calm down," he said, his voice as sweet as syrup on shortcake. "This is the dream house. We've worked years for this." "Really?" I asked, "while you claimed you couldn't afford plane tickets to visit me for Thanksgiving?" "Silence. That's different," Jacob stammered. "Holiday travel is expensive, and a $500,000 lake house isn't." I hung up. I didn't feel satisfied, and I didn't feel regret. At 76, I've learned some storms aren't meant to be endured. They come to wash away the things that don't deserve to stay. The following week, things got tense. Melissa's letters arrived daily, less reconciliation, more financial panic. Voicemails from Jacob flipped between sweet talk and accusations. People I barely knew, not Hannah. Just Melissa's party friends called to check on my health with voices dripping in fake concern. The mortgage company sent letters requesting confirmation of the guarantee. Withdrawal? Have you ever had to say enough to family, even when your heart is screaming? I'm Elaine Brooks, 76, and I just cut the financial umbilical cord with my daughter. I stood in my kitchen in Hood River, the smell of roasted coffee mingling with pine. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number, likely another one of Melissa's friends trying to drag me back into the cycle. I didn't pick up. I set my coffee down and felt Whiskers the cat rub against my chair. The green garden outside my window reminded me I chose to live for myself, not as a liability. The bank and mortgage letters came daily. Each envelope confirmed that Melissa and Jacob had stealthily tethered me to their debts without a single word of consultation. On Wednesday, a text from a random number. "Mom, please, we're losing the lake house. Everything is falling apart. Is this what you want?" I didn't reply, but the message made one thing crystal clear. Even now, after everything, Melissa only cared about the house, not our relationship. Not once in her letters or texts did she address the venomous words I heard on that porch, except to dismiss them as a joke that I misunderstood. Friday morning, I met Hannah, Melissa's best friend from college, at a tea shop on Pike Street. In Seattle, I was the one who called her. "Thank you for coming," I said as we sat down, the chamomile tea radiating warmth. Hannah looked awkward. "Melissa is terrified, Elaine. She says you've misunderstood something and now you're punishing her." I gave her a faint smile. "Did she tell you exactly what I misunderstood?" Hannah sipped her tea, her hands tightening around the cup. "She said you eavesdropped on a private conversation and got the wrong idea. She said you're old-fashioned, only good at baking, ... But Sophie always defends you. She keeps every album you give her. I heard my daughter wish I'd gotten stuck in a blizzard and died," I said, my voice flat. "Tell me, Hannah, how should I have understood that?" Her eyes went wide. "She didn't say that." There's no way she said it. And Jacob laughed. I took a sip of tea, the chamomile gentle on my tongue. Did you know they've used me as a financial guarantor for years? That they took out loans for a lake house deposit while telling me they couldn't afford to visit for Thanksgiving? Hannah went silent. The answer was written all over her face. I didn't meet you to complain, I continued. I met you to give you this. I slid an envelope across the table. It's an invitation to a bake-off at the Bellevue Retirement Community next month. I want you there. Melissa and Jacob are not invited. Hannah left, visibly shaken. I felt no guilt, only the certainty that the truth, once spoken, creates its own justice. That afternoon, a text from Karen Wells, my lawyer. The lake house contract is dead. They're blaming you to everyone they know. I texted back, thanks for letting me know. I'm sorry they've put you in the middle of this. Karen replied instantly, don't be. My husband and I are starting to see them for who they really are. Maybe that's the first real win. It wasn't just the financial fallout. It was the small acknowledgement that I wasn't the one in the wrong. For weeks after leaving that cake on Melissa's porch, she called again. This time, I picked up. Mom, she said, her voice cracking with relief. You finally answered, worried. I asked softly. Of course we were worried. She snapped, you disappeared. You changed everything financially without a word. What did you tell Hannah? I just want you to understand how busy I am. I heard what you said, Melissa, I interrupted. That you wished I'd gotten stuck in the storm. That I'm a pest and life would be easier if I stopped. Nagging. A long silence followed. That was just... Melissa started. Don't, I said. Don't insult me with more lies now. She began to cry real tears this time. We didn't mean it. We're stressed. If you call all the time, you're always lonely. ... We feel so guilty. That's the problem, I said. You see my love as a burden, my calls as an obligation, and my presence as something to be endured. Melissa, I am not a burden. If you want to talk, start with the truth. It's not fair, she whispered. And wishing me dead is fair? I replied, but this is reality. What do you want from me? She hesitated. What, nothing? I said, that's the point. I don't want anything from you anymore. Not your time, not your attention, and certainly not your fake affection. You can't just cut us off like this. Melissa's voice rose in a panic. The lake house deal collapsed. Our credit cards are maxed. Jacob is panicking about the mortgage. Can't afford this right now. And there it was. Not as single. Concern for me just for what I could provide. So that's why you called Melissa? I asked. To turn the money tap back on. No, she protested, far too quickly. I want to fix our relationship. I love you. Love, I said. Because love requires respect, and respect requires honesty. You haven't been honest with me for years about your feelings, your finances, or my place in your life. That's not true, Melissa said over the phone, but her voice lacked conviction. Was the last time you visited without asking for something? When was the last time you called just to talk, not to manage me or set boundaries? When was the last time you saw me as someone you cherish rather than an obligation you have to handle? Her silence was the answer. I'm not your bank anymore, Melissa, I said. And I'm not your emotional punching bag. If you want us to have a relationship, it must be built on respect, genuine affection, and absolute honesty. And if I can't meet those terms, her voice hardened, the victim mask finally slipping, then we have nothing. Simple as that. You're choosing to be right over being my mother, she said, delivering what she thought was the final blow. After all those things you said about family coming first, how can you do this? Family does come first, I agreed. But what you and Jacob did isn't family. That was exploitation hidden under the guise of duty. I deserve better. This is about money, isn't it? She suddenly asked. Sure, punishing us financially because you're hurt. No, Melissa. This is a consequence. For the first time in your life, your actions toward me have real consequences. The money is just the most visible part. Jacob says you've always been manipulative, she added desperately. That you use guilt to control me? I laughed a genuine sad laugh. The person who convinced me to guarantee a loan for a lake house, by claiming they were broke, is calling me manipulative. The irony was laughable if it weren't so tragic. So that's it? She asked. 40 years of being a mother, erased because of one thing I said. Not erased, I said. Transformed. I am still your mother. I still love the little girl you were and the woman you could become. But I will not accept the role you've assigned me. A financial cushion and an emotional scapegoat. If you want, a relationship. We build it on the truth, starting with an admission of what I heard that night. If I apologize, if I say, I'm sorry you heard that, will you re-sign the guarantee? Help with the lake house. Even now, an apology was just a transaction, not a healing. Goodbye, Melissa, I said gently. When you're ready to talk about us without mentioning money, you know where to find me. I hung up before she could respond, feeling neither victory nor defeat, but something much deeper, peace. For the first time in years, I had spoken the truth without fear of being abandoned. Because in reality, I had been abandoned in every way that mattered long ago. Outside my window, spring was arriving. The apple tree Tom planted was budding. Green promises reaching for the light. 6 weeks after the blizzard, I organized a charity. Bake-off at the Bellevue retirement home. This wasn't the lavish party Melissa used to pressure me into. It was an authentic event, true to who I am. Clara came, bringing her famous garlic bread. Hannah arrived, her blonde hair shimmering in the sun, and apologized. I should have seen the truth about Melissa sooner. Thank you for opening my eyes.
But the storm hadn't quite finished with me. That very evening, while reviewing all my accounts, I discovered a loophole, an old joint savings account from when Tom was alive that I had almost forgotten. Melissa, as a previously authorized user, had withdrawn $3,000. Her message arrived shortly after, cold and blunt, a fee for the damage you've caused. And worse, their lawyer had officially filed a lawsuit against me for breach of guarantee contract. I sat alone in the dark, clutching my phone. Everything seemed to have returned to square one, but this time I was no longer the weak woman on that porch. That $3,000 was the final piece of evidence I needed to bring everything into the light. Sophie, my granddaughter, came to help, smiling brightly as she set out the cakes. I laughed out loud when Sophie clumsily spilled the fresh cream, white streaks staining her shirt. She handed me a drawing, the two of us by the oven, eyes glowing with joy. My book club, my charity friends, and the isolated seniors I met at yoga in Hood River were all there. Hannah, who had chosen the truth after our conversation at the tea shop, helped me plate the shortcake. Melissa told me I had to pick a side, she said, placing strawberries on Tom's silver platters, and she said I was a traitor for coming here. And yet, you came, I said. Yes, Hannah agreed. It turns out loyalty has its limits, especially when someone expects you to turn a blind eye to cruelty. We ate strawberry shortcake, a new recipe with a hint of ginger and orange zest, not the cake I had left behind in Seattle. I had taught Sophie and her friends how to make it the day before, passing on Tom's legacy, each slice of strawberry like a memory he left behind. I served it on the fine china I used to save for occasions that were never quite special enough. Clara raised her fork, her eyes sparkling in the golden sunlight. To Elaine, who at 76 is braver than ever. She laughed, adding, Elaine, you've brought a real family here today. And to new beginnings, Hannah added, for finally knowing your own worth. I look around at the dear faces from old friends to new ones, and my heart opens wide. This morning, another letter from Melissa. Mom, I need to talk. I'm about to lose my house. Still no apology, still only about money. I don't reply. I focus on my new joy, knowing I am no longer a credit source, but a source of inspiration. This community, Clara, Sophie, Hannah, is the family I chose. Authentic, built on respect, not obligation. Messages from Melissa still come, less frequent now, but no less calculating. Mom, the mortgage company is grilling us. Jacob's car broke down. We can't afford to fix it. Why are you punishing us over one slip of the tongue? I don't answer. There are lessons only experience can teach, and Melissa is still learning about consequences. Instead of responding, I focus on rebuilding the life I once put on hold while waiting for my daughter's acceptance. I joined a charity in Hood River, the kind Melissa used to dismiss as a waste of family time. I volunteer at the local community center, teaching children to cook. The way their eyes light up reminds me of Sophie when she was little. I signed up for a painting class at the Bellevue retirement home, sketching the blizzard I survived. Each brushstroke feels like a step past the pain. Most importantly, I teach baking at the home 3 afternoons a week. Many women my age, living alone, find joy through the class. I help them make shortcakes and listen to their life stories. Relationships that hurt them, but never cost them their hope. You're different from the other older volunteers, one woman said as we kneaded dough. You understand, don't you? Loving someone who still hurts you. I have a bit of experience, I replied, thinking of Melissa. When the director of the retirement home learned I had amended my will to support them, she invited me to lunch. This is a massive gift, Elaine, she said. May I ask why? I told her about Melissa, about the cruel words on the porch, and about realizing I was being used. So, is this to punish your daughter? She asked without judgment. No, I said, weighing my words. This is to honor what matters. These people are rebuilding their lives with dignity. My money should nourish strength, not indulge entitlement. By autumn, I had established a new rhythm, both strange and familiar. I planted the blueberry bushes Clara suggested and joined a hiking group exploring the mountains around Hood River. Sophie came to visit, wearing the woolen scarf I had once knitted for her. She said, Grandma, I want to learn to bake like you, so I can remember you forever. She told me about school and friends, strengthening a bond that didn't need Melissa as a bridge. Melissa sent a birthday card, cold and distant. Hope you're well, I'm very busy, enclosed with a gift card for a chain restaurant. I set the card down, my heart light, ready to leave the door ajar if Melissa truly changed. The financial fallout continued for her and Jacob. Through Karen, I learned they moved into a smaller house. Unable to afford a tutor, Jacob took on night shifts. Melissa started trying her hand at real estate, a job she once looked down upon as beneath her. I took no pleasure in their struggles, but I recognized the necessity. For too long, I had shielded them from natural consequences. Now, reality was teaching them what my love had once prevented: growth through adversity. In November, as the first snow dusted the apple tree, Hannah called. Melissa is pregnant, she said. About 3 months along. I thought you should know. I thought about it for days, my emotions as tangled as a ball of yarn. A new life, a chance for Melissa to learn to love sincerely. I sent her a letter on thick stationery. I heard your news. A child changes everything. Sometimes by their presence, sometimes by their absence. I wish you enough wisdom to cherish what truly matters. If you want to build a relationship based on respect, free of financial ties, my door is always open. Love, Elaine. She didn't reply. 6 months after that trek through the blizzard, I sat in my kitchen writing a grocery list for Thanksgiving. I invited Clara, Hannah, Sophie, and a few new friends. Suddenly, the phone rang, an unknown number. Hello, Mrs. Brooks, it's Jacob calling from Swedish Hospital in Seattle. His voice was trembling. Melissa was admitted for high blood pressure due to work stress and the situation with you. She's stable, but the doctors are worried about the baby. She's 7 months along. She asked me to call. She wants to see you. My heart skipped a beat. Is she okay? Stable, but they need to monitor her overnight, Jacob said. She said she's sorry and asked if you would come, if you meant what you said in the letter. I closed my eyes, the old pain stinging. The image of little Melissa crying Mommy and Sophie's words, Mom is trying to change, surfaced in my mind. Tell her I'll be there tomorrow morning, I replied, checking the Amtrak schedule. I chose the train over driving. 6 months ago, the blizzard had been too much, and now I needed to be safe to see my daughter. This trip to Seattle was different from the journey 6 months prior. No blizzard, no cake, no illusions of joy or heartbreak. Just light November snow and the rhythmic glide of the train, carrying me toward a conversation 40 years in the making. My heart was open but cautious. Melissa looked frail in the hospital bed, cradling her 7-month bump, her eyes brimming with tears that looked more honest than any of her past manipulations. "You actually came?" she sobbed. "You asked for me," I replied, pulling a chair to her bedside. The sound of the monitors and the hum of the hospital filled the silence between us. "I've been going to therapy," Melissa said, staring at her shaking hands. "Ever since we lost the lake house. At first, it was for the stress, but now, it's deeper. The doctor asked me why I hated it when you called, why I saw it as a chore instead of a connection, why I said such cruel things to the only person who ever truly loved me. And now," I asked gently. "I was wrong, Mom," she wept. "I was selfish. I said things to hurt you. Through the therapy, I realized I'm terrified of losing you forever. I want to get healthy. I want to start over with you." I sighed, my voice firm but compassionate. "I am still here, Melissa, but I will never be a shadow to be used again. If we are to start over, it requires respect, honesty, and absolutely no borrowing." Melissa nodded, her eyes wet. "I'm learning, Mom, for you and for myself." I took her hand firmly, knowing this was just the first step, and that the journey to healing would take time. We didn't resolve everything that day. Healing is a journey of setbacks and small victories. In the months that followed, we established a routine: coffee every week without mentioning finances, and family dinners with conversations that went deeper than small talk. Jacob found it hard to adapt. His charm lost its value when it could no longer be traded for material gain, but he tried, for Melissa's sake. I kept the life I had built. My will still supports the Bellevue retirement home, with an added trust for Sophie, my granddaughter, my light. My painting classes continue. I sketch the blizzard, each brushstroke representing a newfound strength. Sophie visited recently with a new drawing, me, Melissa, and baby Ellen by the oven, all with radiant smiles, a flicker of hope for a new kind of family. Melissa and I won't go back to how things were. Nor should we. Love without respect isn't love at all. At 76, I've learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop pretending. The snow falls differently now. It's no longer a storm to be endured, but a reminder that hardships eventually melt away, leaving the world clean and ready for whatever comes next. The shortcakes I bake now are less sweet, with more ginger. A bit like me, perhaps. The truth has dispelled the illusions. For months, Melissa kept her word. Weekly coffee, sincere talks, and zero mentions of money. The photos of Ellen were proof she was trying. This morning, as I mixed the dough for a new batch of shortcakes, my phone lit up. A message from Melissa. A photo of a newborn baby with the words, "Mom, this is Ellen, named after you. I want you to meet her." A smile lingered on my lips until my phone vibrated again. This time it was a text from Jacob. "Elaine, Ellen needs urgent minor heart surgery. We've tried everything, but the bank refused us. We need $3,000 up front. She is your granddaughter. Please." Everything stood still. $3,000. That number wasn't just money. It was the shoulder surgery I had been waiting for, the promise of nights without pain, the final bit of freedom for an aging body. I set the phone down, my hands trembling as I opened a drawer to find a spoon, trying to catch my breath. There, tucked under a layer of linens, was Tom's old diary. The last page read, "Dearest Elaine, if one day Melissa hurts you deeply, remember how much you suffered because of your own mother. She only saw you as an ATM, and you swore you'd never repeat that mistake with your daughter. But perhaps, by overcompensating and failing to teach her the value of independence, we accidentally created a different kind of crack. We are all products of inherited cycles of mistakes. Forgive her one last time if you can. Not because she is our blood, but because you have the chance to break the cycle right here. Love, Tom." I stood paralyzed, the paper shaking in my hand. I had tried to bury that memory for 40 years, but now it resurfaced like an old wound torn wide open. And now, the cycle was tightening its grip on me. That $3,000 was every penny I had saved for my surgery next month. If I press transfer, I save Ellen. But I will have to keep living with agonizing pain, and I will continue to feed the selfish monster inside Melissa. If I refuse, I end the exploitation, but I become the cold-hearted person I've always loathed. Tom was right. We are products of our mistakes, and today that cycle has to stop. I opened the banking app, my finger hovering over the transfer button. The figures $3,000 blinked back at me. And in that moment, I realized forgiveness is sometimes not a gift we give to others, but a slow-acting poison we drink ourselves. And you, what would you choose? Thank you for walking this journey with me. My story isn't just about debts or cruel words, it's about a 76-year-old woman's quest to reclaim her self-respect. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel right now. Every time you subscribe, you are adding your voice to support courage, self-defense, and true love. Our channel has many more emotional stories and lessons like this one. Look at the screen or check the description for the next video. I truly want to hear your story. Leave a comment below and let me know. If you were Elaine, in that final moment of decision, would you press transfer or stop? Every comment helps spread a powerful message. You deserve to be loved with respect, not through exploitation. And you are never alone.